Hello everyone, and welcome back to February on the Cozy Chair. I just gotta say, I love having you here. So, I have another fairy tale. Now, when I was growing up, I heard lots of fairy tales over and over and over again, like The Three Bears and Little Red Riding Hood, Jack and the Beanstalk, and I loved those stories. But today, I have a book that I didn't hear so many times, and this is The Princess and the Pea. And this is retold by John Cech and illustrated by Bernard Oberdijk. And today I'm going to be reading for Celia. Hello, Celia. I am so glad that you let me borrow your book. So, The Princess and the Pea. There's a pea right there on that fancy pillow. I wonder what a princess has to do with a pea. Seems kind of silly to me, but we'll see. A long time ago, there lived a prince who was looking for someone very special to marry. But that someone had to be a real princess. The prince met lots of young ladies who wanted to marry him. Some of them were very pretty, some were very rich, and some were very smart. But none of them was a real princess. And so he kept looking and hoping and yearning. The prince wore out his shoes dancing with all the eligible young ladies. He wore himself out going to parties with them, and he talked with them until he was so tired he couldn't talk anymore. But still, he couldn't find a real princess. Oh, look at that prince. He's just tuckered right out. He's been dancing with all those pretty and smart ladies. Perhaps, said the king, there are no more real princesses. Maybe, said the queen, all the real princesses have already found their princes. Besides, dear son, you know you are very, very picky. And so it went, more parties and dances and conversations for another year, until one night, in the middle of a ferocious thunderstorm, there was a knock at the door of the castle. I wonder who's coming. That looks like a pretty scary storm. Do you like to be outside when it's storming outside? The king was up late. The thunder had awakened him, you see, and so he went to the door. Outside stood a young woman. She was soaking wet. Please give me shelter, she implored. The worried king asked how she came to be alone in the night. My family and I were traveling through the forest. It was so dark and stormy that we lost each other. I walked until I saw the light in the castle. By now the queen, too, had awakened. She took the young woman with her to a guest room to give her dry clothing to settle her in for the night. Who is your family? Asked the queen. I am a king's daughter, though you wouldn't know to look at me, the young woman said. Indeed, her clothes were torn and muddy, and her face was weary from traveling. Thought the queen. We'll soon see if she's a real princess. Real princesses are very sensitive. The queen has got an idea. And so the queen called the maids and the footmen and ordered them to bring 20 mattresses and 20 feather comforters to the bedroom. Just stack them up high, she told them. We want our guest to be comfortable after her ordeal. While a warm bath was being prepared, the servants piled up mattresses and feather comforters until they nearly reached the ceiling. Then they set a ladder next to the bed so their guest could climb up. How would you like to sleep on that bed? Do you think that would be the softest bed ever? With 20 mattresses stacked all the way to the ceiling? After the servants left, the queen took one small green pea that she had gotten from the kitchen and tucked it as far under the bottom mattress as her arm could reach. When the young visitor was ready for bed, the queen helped her climb up the ladder to the top of the stack of mattresses and comforter, blew out the candle, and wished her a good night and pleasant dreams. Oh, that sneaky queen! That sneaky queen. In the morning, when the young woman awoke and joined the royal family for breakfast, the queen asked her how she had slept. "Oh, I barely slept a wink last night," she replied. "I must have strained my back in the forest because it felt like I was sleeping on a stone and not on the stack of mattresses and feather comforters that you prepared for me." Oh, she didn't sleep very well. Why do you think that is? The queen knew at once that this must be a real princess. She wanted to tell her son about her test, but she could not get his attention. He was gazing lovingly into the eyes of the princess, and she into his, and they were both smiling. After breakfast, the king showed the princess around the castle while his men searched the forest for her family to bring them safely to the shelter of the palace. What do you think is happening between the prince and the princess? Do you think they're falling in love? When the queen was finally alone with the prince, she said to him, "I think she's the one, son." Then she told him about placing the pea under the stack of their guests' mattresses. "Only a real princess would have felt a pea in that bed," she said. "Thank you, mother," said the prince, "but I didn't need a pea to tell me she's the real princess. I could see it in the gentleness of her eyes, hear it in the softness of her voice, and feel it in the kindness of her heart." That's how we know real princesses, huh? They're gentle and kind and soft and sweet. And so the prince and the princess were married. Now you might be asking, whatever came of the pea? Well, some say the pea was put into a museum. Others say the pea was cooked in the prince and princess's wedding soup, but still others say the queen kept it to remind herself of her son's wisdom in recognizing the real princess. There they go. What do you think happened to that pea? Do you think they put it in a museum? Or maybe in their very first soup? I don't know. But I'm really glad that the prince chose the princess because of her being kind, and not just because she slept with a pea in her bed. That sounds kind of silly, but I hope that you really enjoyed this book. Now remember, we are done playing Who's Watching? Or who's listening? So now it's time for our Valentine's game. You tell all your mommies, daddies, grandpas, grandmas, all of them, send you a Valentine. They can email it to me at thecozychairclub@gmail.com, or they can send it to me on Instagram, just a little message with their name and your name, and I'll put it together and I'll read it just for you on Valentine's week. Thanks so much for coming, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.